Hey, what's happening, CS Tiers? Welcome to the big show here this Monday evening. Glad you're with us. I am Nick Sterberling. Lots to get to this week here on the podcast. It's MLS SuperDraft week, and we're going to spend a majority of this week's episode previewing this upcoming Thursday's SuperDraft with Travis Clark from TopDrawerSoccer.com. I don't know if there's a better source around the country who has done a better job scouting collegiate talent over the years. Travis is fantastic, and we're looking forward to catching up with him a little bit later on in the show. Of course, it's the silly season, right? Transfer rumors, MLS trades. We're going to touch on all that here on this week's show. Plus, we made a big announcement today as well regarding the organization here at Cincinnati Soccer Talk. So if you're watching us live on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, thank you so much for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Let's welcome in my cast of characters for this week, shall we? Let's welcome in Brad Weigel. Brad, how are you doing, buddy?
Dude, it's soccer season now. Joe Burrow's season is over with. Take that jersey down out the background. It's okay. Put that season to bed. We are on to bigger and better things now.
This is a joint studio.
Okay.
It's I'm multitasking, right? So eventually I'm going to hang a Reds t-shirt in here as well. I'm trying to be all Cincinnati, Brad. I'm all encompassing.
Jeez, man. Well, I appreciate you having me back, Subes. I love talking silly season. I love talking Moneyball, how roster construction works. And the FC Cincinnati's got another step this week with the MLS SuperDraft. A lot of there's some talent on the first several picks that I'm interested to talk about. I know our buddy Michael Lahoud. He's seen a couple of these guys in action with some of his broadcasting this past season. So I'm looking to get in discussions with him and Travis.
Absolutely. Speaking of Michael Lahoud, let's welcome in the pro to the show. Michael, how you doing, buddy?
Good. Feeling refreshed, recharged, and ready to talk MLS draft, FC Cincinnati, and new additions to the squad. So really looking forward to tonight's show.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it as well. We can say you're the only person on our staff who participated in the Super Draft. Picked what, 9th?
Yeah, 9th overall. Very fortunate to be able to have that on my resume. And it's one of the memories before my career started, that transition between college and pro, that I'll forever cherish.
Absolutely. Well, again, glad to have you back on the show. And last but certainly not least, he's the guy behind the numbers, Ken Hetker. Ken, how you been, man?
Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Yeah. Haven't been on since my famous hot takes, and just like I told the crew, I have no alcohol, so don't expect any hot takes tonight.
But, you almost said hot dogs, and I kind of want one now.
Yeah, hot dogs. Well, I was going to ask Michael Lahoud, what's better on his resume, being 9th in the Super Draft or being a member of CST?
Oh, depends. What type of hot dogs are you selling? Right now, it's a CST member.
I like that answer.
Yeah.
Well, fantastic. Well, again, appreciate all three of you being on the show this week. Like I said, we do have a lot to get to. We will be joined by Travis Clark a little bit later on the show from TopDrawerSoccer.com, where he does a fantastic job, again, covering the draft and the youth talent in the United States of America. But as we were preparing for tonight's show, we kind of got somewhat of a bombshell rumor that floated into our Twitter sphere here amongst FC Cincinnati Twitter, and that is that we found out that Ives Galarcep has reported that the New York Red Bulls are actively shopping center back Tim Parker. Tim Parker, a pretty solid center back in this league for the last 2 years. I believe he's played in the league for 6 years now. Has, I think, started in the Vancouver Whitecaps Academy. I could be wrong about that, but again, has been a pretty consistent center back for the New York Red Bulls over the last few years. I wouldn't call this source solid, but this source in the past has been correct on other players that have arrived in Cincinnati. This source, Brad, is saying that Tim Parker to Cincinnati is a done deal. First of all, wow. I don't think any of us saw this coming. 2, you and Ken have been crunching the numbers for the last 30 minutes, and you're trying to wonder, how is this even possible? So you hear this news, and what are your initial thoughts?
Well, we've heard there's been smoke around Tim Parker being put on the market probably the past year or so. And so with Ivis Glarsep coming out today and saying that he's up for sale, that's not a shocker. I think my first initial thought was that it would be a tough go for FC Cincinnati to bring him in, just because the fact that FC Cincinnati spent a lot of assets. Ronald Matarrita, he took up a lot of money earlier this year. So I want to say it was like $250,000 at least this year plus add-ons. So adding all the players you're bringing back, FC Cincinnati doesn't necessarily have a ton of GAM. So I think my first thought it was going to be tough, but it's Will Forbes. To Will's credit, he nailed Matarrita at FC Cincinnati. So I tip my cap to him there. But being Tim Parker as a player, I'll maybe let Michael LaHood get into it. But real quick, I know I'm not really doing a great train of thought here, so I apologize for that, Tubes. But I reached out to my buddy Ben Cork, who was on last week from Wentz Metro, and just to get his thoughts, he went, Parker's good, somewhat slow in open space and weak in the air, but it is tough to beat on the ground and smooth on the ball. He rebounded his form a lot at the end of 2020 and plays well when motivated and organized. So, I tend to like some of that. I like that he's good with the ball. I think Jaap Stam wants that. So it could be a positive move, but there's still a lot to happen. So we'll see.
Yeah. I want to make sure we give credit where credit is due. Will Forbes on the Twitter is the one who put that out there, that it was a done deal. So I want to give credit there. Before I get to you, Ken, about crunching the numbers, I want to ask Michael, what would FC Cincinnati be getting in Tim Parker? I mean, when you hopped on with us just moments ago, when we told you that he was rumored to come to Cincinnati, I don't know if I've seen your eyes got that wide before. I mean, that was a pretty remarkable reaction.
Yeah, last time my eyes got that wide, talking FC Cincinnati, I think someone mentioned something about Skyline Chili, and I thought, Jesus. No, Tim Parker, there's two parts of this. And I know Ken's going to touch on the number crunching and everything, but for me, from a soccer standpoint, you do what you need to do to get a Tim Parker. We've been talking about domestic players and the need for domestic veteran talent that have winning pedigree and winning experience. Tim Parker brings that. And, oh, by the way, he was a member of the U.S. national team. He has caps under him. And so that's big time. That would be a massive upgrade for this back line. However, there's the money ball factor. The numbers don't lie. And for this roster, FC Cincinnati need to be smart about how much they invest and what are they able to afford regarding the cap and everything. And I know Ken's the maestro when it comes to that.
Yeah, Ken. I mean, last year I think we saw that Parker was making about $750,000 last year. I know we just jettisoned Kendall Waston he was making $850,000. Now there's a little bit of a difference there. Waston older in age. So you're getting a younger player with MLS experience a little bit cheaper.
Yep. I mean, I think it's from a finance side, from that, when you look at it that way, it seems like a good deal. And I'm not going to knock it one way or the other right now. It's all dependent upon what we're giving up to get him. When I look at the numbers, and Brad and I were talking, it's possible to do this. It's not out of the realm of possibility, we should say, but we are on a tight budget line. So I mean, do we? And I was talking to Brad. Do we bring in the third DP, so to speak, and I call it the third DP in the summer because you get them for half price. Then at that point in time, is that the play to save money at this point, and you just go get a DP10 and Tim Parker? That's 2 of the 3 open spots, and you wait till the summer with maybe some money in your pocket to get that third DP. At the same point in time, you're saving money to give up assets to New York Red Bulls. That's the hard part. If we send somebody, Cruz, Kubo, VDW, somebody, it changes the game and it makes it look, it makes it a better deal. We have no idea what might be going the other direction. And that will make this trade, in my opinion, of whether it was good, bad, or, fair across the board. So
if I can take one thing from this, because to reset the story a little bit, this deal is not done.
Oh, for sure. This is just a big old rumor.
Big old rumor. Will just was right about Matarrita. So you know what, and he's been right on some other stuff. So it's interesting, but it's not done yet. But one of the things that I take away from this is that it looks like, if true, and probably there's some truth to it, that FC Cincinnati is looking to start to fill their needs that they were talking about this offseason. You know, we talked about it. They needed to get a DP10. So we're still waiting to see that. They needed to get a TAM center back, which Parker fits that mold. And we've talked about maybe some help up front. You know, we heard about Lincoln. We've heard about some other guys. So at least to me, this looks like it's starting to get back on message for what the club wants to do. They need to start addressing the needs. Now we'll see if Tim Parker's going to be the guy. I still have some questions there. I'm not sure he's fast enough for this already slow this center back. You know, this would be 4 center backs. He'd be 4 slow center backs. But I'm at least excited and heartened to see that we are indeed trying to fix some of the correct holes on this roster.
I have a thought on that. So when I played with Miami FC, I remember sitting down with Alessandro Nesta, and one of the things that he really challenged me on was when you're in a league, especially if you're a new player who's just come into a league and you're a foreigner, you look to the guys who are from the country and who know the league and have that veteran experience to lead the way, especially when it comes to that back line. And with FC Cincinnati, you need an American or MLS veteran experience defender. And if Tim Parker is available, I mean, get your list out. Someone's getting the chop. Because if I'm Gerard Nightcamp, I'm offering, you know, I love I'm offering the ball boy if I can to get him.
Well, for Brian Weigel.
Or Brian, Brian Weigel for sure. But you know, I'm a big fan of Tim Parker. I think this last year for Red Bull, he was, he wasn't at his best, but a change of scenery, being the main man, because at Red Bull, Aaron Long has become the stalwart and, you know, that captain leadership figure and the guy that they built that team and backline around. But I mean, get the big red, go for Tim Parker. That's my 2 cents.
We just need to get starters on this team. You know, there's too much ebb and flow. There's too many question marks still. And I think if you can get a starter like Tim Parker, who ideally you think you could pencil him in as one of your 2 starting center backs for the next 3 years or more, that allows you to maybe move on from a player like Michael Vanderwerf, who is a TAM guy who, you know what, maybe you can bring in somebody else and, you know, you turn him over, you know, next year. That's when you can start to build this club, is when you start to get some of these cornerstones, these building blocks that are built, you know, on a firm foundation and not in sand. That's how you are going to turn this puppy around.
Yeah, I wanted to just add, this is definitely a sign to me that we're playing from the back. Parker can pass the ball. Matarrita getting up the left side. I'm just saying, I agree with Brad. I am still leery of the speed on our back line, but if anything, this screams Stom wants to play from out of the back, which we knew was not the strength of Waston. So I think it's that step in that direction that we want. I'm questioning who's he going to pair with? Is it Pedersen? Is it VDW? Is it Hagelin? Is it, you know, who's his center partner pair? Unless we're going out and getting another one, which I doubt would. And I say unless, I'm acting like we got him. We again, it's not a done deal. If we do bring him in, who would be his partner? So that's all I have to add.
Yeah, and again, I want to stress again, this is a rumor. This is not anywhere close to being a done deal. We don't know anything at this point. We've reached out to our sources to see if there's any legs to this. We just know that in the past, this particular source, Will Forbes, has hit. And so I don't know if there's anything to this. We'll find out, of course. And if there is any breaking news regarding any trades made by FC Cincinnati, of course, you know, we will have all the latest over at CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. All right, it's that time of the show where we give a big shout out and thanks to our tremendous supporters. Let's give it up, shall we, to Tim Bronsel and Tom Rose, Matt Adamczyk, Mike Hudson, Brian Malone, Jamie Smed, Jonas Tom, Jack Emery, Mike Bowman, Kathleen Francis, Matt Imholt, Matthew Long, Joe Colling, Tara Mullins, Riley Stephen Burke, and Melissa Bingle. Thank you so much for supporting us here at Cincinnati Soccer Talk. To learn more on how you can support the show, head on over to cincinnati-soccertalk.com/support. Well, this upcoming Thursday, the MLS SuperDraft, the 2021 version, will commence. And we are really pleased to have joining us this week on Cincinnati Soccer Talk. He is Travis Clark. He's the director of content over topdrawersoccer.com, the premier, and I'm telling you, the premier website covering collegiate soccer, and not just collegiate soccer, but youth soccer in the country. Travis, thank you so much for joining us here on Cincinnati Soccer Talk. How you been, man? Happy New Year.
Thanks. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
It's kind of been a weird year, right? With COVID, there wasn't the collegiate soccer scene this fall took a little bit of a different shape. So it made kind of scouting a little difficult for you, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think weird year is an understatement for sure. But when you're trying to hold a draft, and we just saw the NWSL do this, and you haven't had a season, and for the bulk of the teams entering it, you get lots of crazy things, and it'll be interesting to see what that means for the draft on Thursday. It looks like there's a Generation Adidas class, which comprised four of the players in that 5-player class. It looks like would have actually played in the fall, but it certainly makes you wonder what have the players been up to, and what do they look like. So you're basing what you know off of things you've seen in the past and the players that you've watched for sometimes 4, 5, 6 years. But it'll be interesting to see how it pans out for sure.
Travis, we talked earlier this week, and I know you were on Austin's podcast earlier today. So did you take my advice? Did you tell them that it's not wise to count on building through the draft and to pass on that first pick?
Yeah, that's what I told them. I told them they should skip it because they don't need any players, and they should be fine without picking
anybody,
using any of their 4 picks from the draft. Because once you pass once, you're done for the rest of the draft.
And really, Cincinnati should have the first pick in my mind. So, but no, I'm just kidding with you. So you talked about the Generation Adidas a little bit. Who should FC Cincinnati be looking out for in that class?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you look at roster flexibility, when you look at players with upside, you're probably going to end up getting a player in the Generation Adidas class. The one caveat, we're looking at players that are, 3 of the 5 are also international. So it kind of depends on the international spot you have a building. And like we've seen in the past drafts, a lot of the players that look intriguing, you don't really necessarily know if they're going to work out, may not end up getting a shot because, again, they'll require an international roster spot. So, if Philip Mayaka's there, he's this energetic box-to-box midfielder. He, for me, he probably edges it as the best, quote-unquote prospect in the class. Justin Harris is a dynamic, wide flank player who he's been good for Wake Forest, but, as we talked about, it's been a little bit of a small sample size just because of, he actually did play in the fall of 2020, but, you don't necessarily know how these things are going to work out. And then, of the other guys in the class, Daniel Pereira, I think he's a little bit, I see a lot of Frankie Amaya in him. So it'd be kind of like, well, draft a kid who's a little bit like a player you already have, or maybe even a lot in that, he's a good technically, good passer of the ball. I think Pereira might be a little bit more, he might be a bit more attack minded than Amaya. So, maybe that could be a reason he gets snatched up. Ethan Bartlow, the center back, he's a reported member of the class. Hasn't been confirmed yet. And then Brett Halsey, the right back from Virginia. Those latter two, they don't have a kind of the upside as the other guys. Now, what you really need to do, I think, is draft last year and keep the pick and pick Daryl DK, because wouldn't FC Cincinnati have a 3rd pick last year? Not that we need to relive that, but
you had to bring it up, Travis.
No, I still think I make fun of Inter Miami forever for not picking him 1st overall, but I'm not here to talk about Daryl DK. So
he would fit.
It's something that I have to mention. Yeah, exactly. So I don't think there's going to be I don't see a DKS talent in this draft if we're talking a guy knocking on the door of the national team of the year, talked about a big time transfer abroad. There's not, not some of the guys that we've seen come through the league who have that kind of potential. And that could be wrong, obviously, especially in these weird COVID times. But Mayaka, that's why I go back to Mayaka, and Harris. There's a little bit something about him that helps them pop off the page in college soccer, and that, I think, as rudimentary as it sounds, kind of helps you look at players and be like, okay, I think this will work in MLS, just because they look a little bit different. They do some things that change games, whereas a lot of it, it's just similar big center backs that can pass the ball relatively well, but then they don't quite move well enough, and that's why they're in college soccer. So, it'll be interesting to see how this all works out and how teams approach it, for sure.
Travis, question for you. As someone who was drafted as a senior in the MLS draft, do you see any seniors or eligible players that could be high profile players or players that teams need or should look at drafting?
Yeah, I mean, there's a handful of center backs for sure, and that when it comes to the college game is, I still think relatively reliable. Josh Bauer is a guy out of New Hampshire who he actually signed with Birmingham Legion for a short-term deal and is in the draft pool. Nabi Kabunchi from UC Davis, and then there's a 6'6" center back from Kentucky named Aim Mabika, who's from around the Louisville area, I believe. Rio Hope Gunn is a defender from Georgetown. So there's not going to be these huge impact players, but we saw like an Alistair Johnson last year, who was a senior out of Wake Forest, come in and do a job for was it Nashville, played a bit at right back. Maryland has a left back named Matt DeRose. I think the COVID thing makes it just so much harder to know where these guys are and how they've kept themselves in shape. I've been able to see some videos from teams that have been training and posting it on the video servers that I use. So like Matt DeRose is a left back at Maryland that I feel like he has something about him where he could come in and see some minutes as a senior pick, because I think it's similar. People will ask me like, well, how does this compare to past classes? And I'm, it's pretty similar to what we've seen over the past several, few years, where the higher end talent is never going to college now for the most part, but there are guys that come out, but a lot of these players will then already be, homegrown players. So that progression just means there's less seniors talent available, or guys will have already signed in left school for GA deals. So there's definitely going to be some seniors that we see picked who I think they're not going to be day one starters. I can't, especially with COVID, I'm not going to put my reputation on the line for that. But I think we'll see guys make the roster and stick around for a few years.
We're hanging out with Travis Clark, Director of Content over at TopDrawerSoccer.com here on Cincinnati Soccer Talk. And we kind of briefly touched on the Generation Adidas class, Travis. It seems like, and now correct me if I'm wrong, I have not gone back and looked at years past, but it just seems like the Generation Adidas class this year is smaller. Is there a particular reason for that? Is that because of more and more talented players are in MLS academies versus playing collegiate soccer?
I mean, yeah, it's a variety of factors. I think that the pandemic is a factor, cutting costs there. I don't want to speak out of turn and be like, well, MLS is definitely looking to save money, sure, and they're not signing as many GA players. But I'm sure that's got to be a factor as well. But for me, it's probably the big thing is that players just, so many teams didn't play. And so then we didn't have that freshman that, came from, outside the DA, or, maybe a player like, Calvin Harris is a guy that we know who's part of the class, but, a guy like him who came from abroad and just like dominated college soccer and was the right profile and the right type of player that we're like, okay, we're going to make this player an offer. And, so I think for me, a lot of it is that I know that some resources are being shifted within MLS to, really boost up the academy and go that direction. But, I think when you're looking at it, it's got to be the fact that you just don't have a lot of data on a lot of these players that you would have in a normal season. Maybe there was a freshman out there a player who had played as a freshman in 2019 and then just really took off as a sophomore and got that GA contract. Or, JJ Williams was a striker out of Kentucky a few years back who just almost came out of nowhere and scored almost 20 goals and signed a GA deal. Now he's in USL right now. It's been stick in MLS for a long time, but a guy like that didn't have a chance to play in college, and that is obviously a factor as well.
Travis, one of the things that comes to my mind when selecting these players is roster and cap makeup. Okay. And for better or worse, FC Cincinnati is trended towards the international market. But with that, we have a lot of question marks around international spots and green cards. We're rumored to be close on, 4 guys, I want to say, with international spots. But if those don't come to fruition by the start of the season, there's a chance that a couple guys are going to be odd men out here. And that's a very big deal when you're looking at Harris or Mayaka or Pereira. Do any of these guys maybe project to have an easier road to a green card than another, maybe?
I don't necessarily think so. I don't know enough about all of the legal mechanisms to really speak to that. I know that Mayaka and Pereira both came to the U.S. with their families when I believe when around their teenagers. Pereira, I know in high school, like early high school, and he's an asylum seeker. So my assumption is that he is much longer away. But again, I'm speaking without understanding the legal process. I think if you put lawyers at it, you can probably shrink those windows. So, perhaps that either, someone like Pereira, maybe he's a little bit closer actually, if you get all that sorted, because he's been here longer than someone like Calvin Harris. And maybe Mayaka is a little bit closer than Harris. So, or maybe, we're speculating about the wrong guys. Maybe Ethan Bartlow, the center back who has that GA tag, maybe he's a depth piece. I think he's a pretty solid MLS player. He projects, not as anything crazy, but it's not a bad thing to have a good center back on your roster with a little bit of flexibility. I haven't dug deep enough into Cincinnati's roster makeup to know exactly, but maybe that comes into maybe Cincinnati does try to trade the pick after I made that joke that they should keep it this year. So that's definitely a element of this whole process that I won't say I'm in the dark, but it makes it even more difficult to speculate because what do you want to go for? An established pro with 5 years of experience who's 24, or a kid out of college who's 21 and has an international status. We have no idea of how it'll work in a league like MLS. So, again, it's another unique piece of this. And as the college game, as we kind of talked about, shifted, so many of these guys are internationals that are attracting a little bit of a higher end, or looks like they could produce at a little bit of a higher level, but is that level going to be high enough to justify that international spot?
Hey, Travis, this is Ken. I got a question on basically the depth of the draft. We all cheer, I think Extra Time had a nice little segment, who is the best super draft pick of all time, and there was
Michael
a debate. Yeah, Michael Lahoud.
Yeah,
but there was the argument of picking somebody in the top 5 is not the best super draft. Who's, David Goss was saying somebody down low who could be a surprise. Is there anybody in this draft that you see? And I know it's strictly an opinion that you sit there and go, man, this kid has everything but this. And if he improves that, he's that much better. And I want to throw a name out. I was playing around, looking around. A kid like Danny Trejo from Cal State Northridge was somebody that stood out to me. I watched his touch and I was like, man, this kid's really good. Of course, I don't know the competition and I'm no college expert. So I was just looking around and I just wanted to get your thoughts on who would be a diamond in a rough further down in the draft.
Yeah, I think in a normal season, I have a little bit of a better idea like this, a little better idea about what this could look like. One player that I've liked for a while is Alexander Dexter, a winger from Pittsburgh. He's had these moments where he can just create, kind of dazzle out wide, whether that's beat a guy one-on-one, whether that's, make the right decision at the right moment in the final third to create a chance or score a nice goal. And from my understanding, he came to the U.S. actually after growing up and playing soccer, like part of his career in Germany, as not like in a Bundesliga youth club, but I think he was the son of a serviceman or woman, or he lived abroad with his family because it looked like someone was in the armed forces. And he's a guy who I think, if he can be consistent, if he can unlock that next level, maybe it's a case of he needs to be around better talent, and that can, bring out the best in him. A little more high profile guy that didn't play in 2020, Derek Dotson, who maybe he just lacks that little bit of a top end speed to really be a killer number 9 at the MLS level. But he's won a lot. He works hard. He presses from the front. He can probably finish at a high enough rate when he gets on the end of chances, even if he's not going to kill you with his speed in behind as much as you might like. So, and then another name down, actually a guy with academy ties, Justin McMaster, who suffered. I don't think he played. If he played 1 or 2 games for Wake Forest in the fall of 2020. But again, another really intriguing, high potential good kid that just battled injuries and consistency in college. Can he, now that he's made it through Wake, made it through college, can he get healthy and then really hit the ground running if you get the chance? So those are a few of the names that jumped out to me. But I think that the pandemic threw it all on its head, because then you don't have that as much data to work through, and you don't know where these guys are coming into sort of this time.
Now, I'm going to kind of segue a little bit away from the draft just for a second, and you can be honest with me and tell you eat this stuff up and these rankings are 100% true, or you can also be honest and say, I don't pay attention to this too much. But one of the things that I noticed on your website a couple weeks ago were the top 25 club team rankings. And I want to say it was like FC Cincinnati U17s were ranked number 1, U16s were 3, and I want to say like the U13s, 14s, 15s all had nice performances. What have you seen so far, if at all, if anything, from this new FC Cincinnati Academy under Larry Sunderland that might give us fans some hope?
Yeah, I mean, there's always hope in the youth that are unproven and such, right? So, again, back to the pandemic, though, unfortunately, that's where it starts. I don't know the landscape as well, and my colleague actually puts the rankings together. However, I will say that it does seem to be, from where I'm sitting, as much as I can tell from where I'm sitting, and that's not as usually at the same level as I am in, quote unquote, normal times, when I'm on the road a bit more, when I'm at a big showcase and, getting access to these teams. I did notice when I got to see Cincinnati play, I believe, last at the 2019 DA showcase, that's development academies, that I think there's a little bit more of a plan. Seems like things were working more towards just getting organized and getting people into positions where they could succeed. And you just have to look at what's going on around it, maybe even off the field. And that's the stuff you guys might know better. Is it being run well? Are people out in the community trying to engage with local clubs and, recruit the right talent, whether that's local, whether that's from, further away, and stuff like that. Even seeing commitments to fielding more teams like FC Cincinnati has done, I think is a really positive step. And it's reason alone, it's a commitment that not all MLS teams have. So I think that's reason alone to be optimistic. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that will translate into producing players for the MLS team or what have you, but it's certainly a step in a positive direction and something that all teams in the league can claim.
Well, Travis, we appreciate you being on the show this week. As always, you do a tremendous job covering the game over at topdrawsoccer.com. So I'm going to put you on the spot. Assuming FC Cincinnati selects a player this week with the second pick overall in the draft, who are they going to take?
Well, before our conversation, I was going to say Calvin Harris, but you guys got me all worried about it with the international spot and how that's setting up. But I'm going to stick with Harris. It'll work out in the end, and I'm sure the international spots will have all the ducks in the row, or they'll go out and find one from a team that's not using them. So I think Harris can be a good pick, and he's my bet at this time.
You just made a lot of, some of us here at Cincinnati Soccer Talk quite happy. I'll raise my hand to that, Travis.
Michael LaHoo, Demon Deacons, man.
I'm on my cleanse this month. But if Calvin Harris doesn't get picked by FC Cincinnati, I'm breaking my cleanse. Come on, guys.
There you go. We know how Michael feels, Travis. Travis, as always, we appreciate you being on the show. Folks, go check out topdrawersoccer.com. Travis does a tremendous job of that. Travis, as always, enjoy your week, man. Get some rest.
Thanks. You guys have a good one. Appreciate having me on.
That's Travis Clark over at Top Drawer Soccer joining us here on Cincinnati Soccer Talk, getting a little scouting report on the upcoming MLS SuperDraft, which, again, FC Cincinnati has the second overall pick behind Austin FC. So he mentioned the name there at the very end, Calvin Harris, Michael. Tell FC Cincinnati fans why, if he's picked, FC Cincinnati fans should be excited about him.
Well, he scores goals. And last time we
What's
checked,
that like?
I don't ask Locadia. Hopefully. Shots fired. He scores goals. He's gotten better, and I hear what Travis was saying about it's hard to judge a player based on the small sample size. But one of the things that I remember from playing, and some of the best coaches have been around, you can tell a player. It takes you a few seconds to tell who's a good player and who's not. It takes you a few minutes if it's a really big game. And what I like about Calvin Harris is that this past year he showed up in big games and he scores big goals. I mean, I saw a goal that he scored when I was doing broadcasting for ACC Network. We were doing a segment at halftime, and of course I had my iPad, just tune in the Wake Forest game. Go Deeks. And this kid picks up a ball from the left-hand side, does a 1-2, and first time hits it in the top corner, like a Premier League goal. Sign that kid. And he was consistent in delivering big goals and highlight reel goals. Now, how does that translate into the next level? I think it translates well because he can create his own chances. One thing he does well is he's good at picking up the ball and driving right at defenders. Last time I checked, there's not a lot of guys in the FC Cincinnati attack who do that well. So I get the need for defenders and the need to supplement that back line, but I don't like the defenders and the status of the defenders available in this draft class. So get an attacker. You know what? Locadia isn't delivering the goods. Put the kid up top. Put some pressure on him. Why not?
Michael, I like FC Cincinnati. Was it year one? We were the worst team conceding goals in MLS history. Year two, goals per game was the worst in MLS history. So we're just all over the place here. So to me, though, if I was a GM, I would almost go towards like the defensive side of the ball. Okay. Not that, we know Calvin Harris is magic. He's lightning. Almost everybody says that he's going to be he's got the highest ceiling. That's what I'm trying to say. But, we've got Ethan Bartlow out there who's Pac-12 Player of the Year. He's the best defender. And you know what? He's a domestic. So he's a guy, to me, I think you're going to know if Franco Kovacevic is going to be on this team, how Thursday goes. If we get Calvin Harris with the second pick, pretty much in my mind, you probably kiss Franco Kovacevic goodbye because they're both going to be battling for that final international spot, unless you loan Harris, which I doubt you do. Or you know what? You keep, if the front office likes Kovacevic, they traded for that international spot a couple weeks ago. You get a guy like Ethan Bartlow, Pac-12 Defender of the Year. He's good on the ball. He's like another Tim Parker, honestly. He's maybe not quite his size yet, but I think the best part about this draft is FC Cincinnati has some options, and they're options in spots that we have needs.
And of course, Thursday may be dictated with the rumor we heard earlier tonight. I mean, if Tim Parker is in play, do you see them taking a center back, Ken?
No, I don't. In fact, Brad, I mean, I've voiced my opinion. I'm not sold on Ethan, to be honest. I'm just not. I think he's an excellent passer. I've watched that enough, and to be honest, I don't think any of us are college experts. We don't. I mean, to be honest, we're sort of taking a stab in the dark, but he projects more to a central defensive midfielder to me. He looks more he doesn't have the speed or the size, but he knows to where to be defensively. But he can hit a pass, and I do think he fits well in that area. And we just need a center back that we can pair with somebody. And I'm sitting there going, is he who we're going to pair with Michael Vanderwerf or Peterson, or is he just going to be a depth piece? I would rather go with Harris. And at worst case, loan him out if the international spot is so bad, for us that you can at least alleviate that pressure. I don't think it's good for Calvin, but I'm just saying that's an option. And I think long term, it might be the right way to go. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that, Ken. And I know I'm Wake Forest biased. I probably have I know I have my Wake Forest jersey underneath here. It's just cold. And so
you wear
I
the
would
shorts like Michael Jordan still? Like the baby blues, you got like the Demon shorts?
The Wake Forest underwear is actually in the laundry. So I went one up on Jordan. Sorry, MJ. No, I hear what you're saying about the defensive need, but when you have one of the top 3 picks in the MLS draft, those are players that you are committing to. If you're going to use them, play them. A team, we talk about Bartlow, yes, player of the year in the Pac-12. That is shiny. That is great. For me, and I'm just going to go ham, the Pac-12 is not the best conference in college soccer. I said it. The ACC is. So
Stanford disagrees.
Yes, and Stanford in their trophies, they will disagree with that. But ACC,
North Carolina, Virginia, Wake Forest.
You play MLS caliber players or USL caliber players week in and week out. Of the top 5 or of the top 3, where do these players come from? ACC. So for me, FC Cincinnati cannot afford to draft just another role player. That's a massive step backwards. If they are going to use their cards to draft someone, you have to go with Harris. If not, you better get a damn good deal and a damn good international spot, or TAM, GAM, thank you, ma'am, or whatever the acronyms are, to supplement this squad. This team and this squad and the club are in need of something exciting or someone exciting. And you have a kid who can deliver, who can be an impact player, whether he's going to get matches in, he's going to create havoc. And I think when you fall into places like this, you take it. It hasn't worked for the club so far to just keep going the international route. So,
and this is a different international piece. My big worry is that it's going to be an international guy, and Jaap Stam and Jordan Eikamp are just going to sit him on the bench. He's not going to play. That's my worry. My worry is that an international spot. It's worth $175,000 right now in the trade market for GAM. You know what? If we're going to draft an international player, he has to contribute day one like Frankie Amaya did last year. If not, it's a waste.
So let's talk about that for just a second. You brought it up even, which is a great point, is Franco here? Even if Franco is here and we take Ethan Bartlow, we've got Barriel, international spot. We got Kubo, international spot. We've got all these wingers who are international spots. Somebody's sitting on a wing or on the bench, no matter what. If you got Calvin Harris sitting there and he takes up an international spot, guess what he does give you? He gets placed in spots 22 through 24 and doesn't count against the salary cap. So Franco could go, like you said, and we still have somebody sitting on the bench potentially, but he doesn't take up salary cap or a senior spot. There is an added benefit from that regard as well. Just throwing that out there. Taking the opposite.
I get it. If you get a Generation Adidas, he's off the cap for 3 years.
So I was talking about this with a little bit in our Slack earlier this evening because I'm trying to compare this or think of a player that we could compare maybe the situation to, right? I mean, Jordan Morris, I'm not saying this kid is, hold on, Brad, relax. I saw your eye roll. I'm not saying this kid is the next Jordan Morris, but what if he turns out to be? Like, you got to take him, in my opinion. I don't care about defense. I'm sick of defending. I want to get off my seat. I want to get off my seat and be excited. I want to see the ball hit the back of the net. I'm tired of our goalkeepers picking it out of the net. Yes, I agree. But I want to get excited about this team again. I want to, when somebody gets on the ball and is driving at a defender, I want that emotion. I want that feeling of, oh, here we go. And we have not had that in a long time, probably since 2018, Mike, anytime Jimmy got on the ball.
Well, I'm thinking Jimmy Manu Ledesma.
Manu.
With
Yeah,
that
I was
team,
gonna say.
right? Manu.
Jimmy led
was-
the team in appearances in 2018, but he had like 5 starts.
Yeah, Jimmy led the team in downtown appearances, but no, no, Jimmy did lead the team in appearances. He went to Louisville, so free shots on Jimmy tonight. No, I agree with you. I want this team to not be. When is the shift of being proactive and not reactive? I look at San Jose, and San Jose got a rock star coach who actually doesn't have as big of a profile in terms of a playing career, but has a big profile because of where he coached at Chivas Guadalajara. And San Jose was one of the most exciting teams to watch. I mean, they played cardiac football because they lost games 5-4 on the regular, or
I
one
would
game
take that
5-4.
in a heartbeat.
You kidding me? I want to spill my beer every night, not knowing how many, knowing we're going to score goals and not knowing how many we're going to give up. I can live with that, but at least try to go forward. Let the dogs out of the cage. Let the players play, man. Like the fans, the team, and even as a player, yes, you want to win. Yes, you want to be methodical, but I think it's too much of more of the same. And a big thing for me that I was thinking about is, yes, the international spots, but also is dependent on what type of formation are we going to see with FC Cincinnati. If it's a 4-3-3, okay, Harris fits the mold. If it's a 5-3-2, Calvin Harris is a wingback, may not be the thing. Then get Bartlow. But that's something I'm looking for as well. As yes, a draft pick is important, but are you picking a player, especially if it's Harris, an attacking player who's dynamic, and trying to force him into this position that's not his? I mean, you saw that with Zhao. And Zhao, because he's a pro and he's my Man Crush Mondays, shout out to him. Maybe former Man Crush Monday because of the big news today that we're going to touch on. But there's a lot of variables at play.
Can you mentioned it briefly that you think that might be leaning towards a 3-4-3?
Well, I'm just throwing it out there. It's like, depending on what kind of movement we can make, is it a 3-4-3? I don't know. I mean, who plays right back? Left back, Zhao. I mean, yeah. Is that a? Would you really line up Zhao in a 4-3-3? I don't think we would you?
Me, no.
But I'd put him at the right side of the midfield in a 3-4-3.
Exactly. But that's what Michael was talking about, though. Is what are we doing?
Yeah, I think the point is we've got a lot of holes still. There's still moves to be made. I think that Calvin Harris helps fills one of those holes on the wing, hoping he is as good as he is. But if not, does FC Cincinnati want to risk an international spot there? And I think that's just going to be the question.
That is a tough question. And I get the international aspect of it makes it difficult. But we'll see. I've seen a lot of back and forth on Twitter. One faction of FC Cincinnati fans wants the defense. One faction wants the offense. I mean, the fact that we're picking second stinks.
The thing is, I don't want to ask Travis Clark to come on every year. Like, I don't. Mm-hmm. This is like 3 years in a row. I don't.
Yeah. This
is painful. I want to be like, like even picking 13th, we picked Logan Gudula. Logan Gudula so many years ago.
Well, in fact, I didn't even remember that last year we took Ray Ortiz in the second round.
Yeah.
Completely forgot all about that. Once we didn't pick anybody in the first round, or we traded our pick, I completely forgot that we drafted Ortiz in the second round, and now he's not even with FCC anymore. So,
well, something I want to touch on before we move on is with the draft. You look at Daryl DK, and you look at Oscar Pereira. Daryl DK is a savage. Like, this guy built to score goals and prove that in college, and is proving that in the pros, and he's been rewarded for his really good season with the national team.
How did we not take DK?
Mm-hmm.
What did we get in the trade? Remind me.
Like 150, 175 in GAM.
That's what we got.
125 in GAM.
We got Brandon Vasquez with that money.
Oh, that's okay.
That's what we truly ended up getting.
Hmm.
Steve wants to fire back at me and go, Ken was big on Brandon, but man, we could have got DK.
Well,
Yeah.
jury's still out.
I just
mean,
don't rate
Brandon's-
anybody below. Like, so in your day, Michael,
Mhm.
ninth was a good player. You know, how long were you in the league?
Gosh, about 8 years.
Yeah, I would take an 8-year pro right now. You sign up, put a name on the dotted line. Now, unfortunately, it's kind of like after there's Generation Adidas guys and a couple guys, like I'm just a little bit worried about the depth after that. So, like, you know, people are talking about like trade, drop back, trade, get allocation and drop back. I don't know, man. I just think you take a player like Bartlow or Harris and get an asset and not trade back. I don't see the value in it. You know, like the UK kid.
This is the NFL draft.
I know. Like, I've seen the UK kid. He's really tall. Not really good on the ball. You know, some of the other stuff. I don't know. It's interesting to see how the homegrown and the academy programs have just kind of gutted the draft.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think, and this is such a bummer because one of the things that I noticed and should be talked about is MLS is moving away from the exclusive college system that it used to have as the preparation for the pros, and is putting much more of a focus on developing homegrown players and the academies. And so with FC Cincinnati, yes, the academy is just going, but I think we're a year or two out from seeing the benefit of the investment in the academy and having homegrown players who can step into the first team. You know, you look at the Red Bulls, Philadelphia Union. I was there when they were planting the seeds, Richie Graham and all the stuff that they did with YSC Academy. It is now paying dividends, but that took time, and there was some hell to pay and some tough times before all of that came to fruition. But you know, when you have a high draft pick, man, if you're going to trade that away, you know, two things is what FC Cincinnati team are we going to see in terms of what's the team identity? What's the focus? Are we a defensive team? Again, if we're a defensive team, get Bartlow. Get a whole bunch of Bartlows. If we're an attack-minded team, if we're going 3-4-3, you have a kid that can play out wide or anywhere in the attack, really. Get him. But, you know, like someone said earlier, we will know exactly what type of team we're trying to field and what the international situation is by who we pick on Thursday. So I'm biased. I'm going Harris. You know, no Harris. It's going to be a lot of problems on my end.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, look, it's, you know, I've seen folks wanting the pick traded to get the allocation money. We'll see what happens. If it's me, I want to see goals. I want to see attack-minded playing. I want to see attractive goal-scoring soccer. Please. I don't think that's so much to ask. So we'll see. Of course, we'll have all the Super Draft coverage over at CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com throughout the week. So make sure you check back over to the website. Our own Brian Weigel did a tremendous job breaking down the Super Draft as well over at the website. I'll make sure to link to his article in this week's show notes. While you're checking out the show notes, make sure you rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts. We want to know your thoughts on the latest news surrounding Cincinnati Soccer Talk, which we announced today that former FC Cincinnati defender and Arsenal defender, believe it or not, Justin Hoyt joining CST as a new analyst. Really looking forward to getting to work with Justin. Right now, he's still over back across the pond, waiting to return back to the States as he is finishing up his postseason with the Palm Beach Stars in the UPSL. I believe their final is coming up. So hopefully we'll get Justin into the podcast rotation here. Mike, I know you're pretty excited to have your former teammate involved as well.
Yeah, when I heard the news and saw the post this morning, I was just so stoked. I have a lot of respect for Justin. Justin's like a big brother to me, and you know, probably one of the closest friends that I have in the game. I still keep in touch with. I'm really excited to get his insight, and from, you know, just he has such great stories and such a great vantage point and feel for the game. So it just it just makes what we're doing at CST that much greater. Definite upgrade. So looking forward to it.
I'm really looking forward to it. Again, I spoke with Justin last week, and he was pretty eager and excited as well. He's looking forward to reconnecting and keeping in touch with the FC Cincinnati faithful. Again, if you didn't see that announcement, go check it out over on our website, CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. Yes, Bradley.
Did we announce Jeffrey Tebbetts?
We have not mentioned him on the show, but
Did I jump you?
No. If you guys
Spurs,
are like,
baby, come
I
on,
know.
let's go, Spurs FC podcast. That's it.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll go that far, but no, I'm glad you brought him up. Jeff Tebbetts, he is in the chat room watching us on YouTube, has officially joined us as well. He'll be writing over on the website and adding to the podcast rotation as well. If that name sounds familiar to you or you don't know who Jeff Tebbetts is, he's the crazy guy with the crazy FC Cincinnati like 3-piece suit. He shows up in the games. It's blue and orange. You know him. If
Crazy
you saw him,
or
you know
wonderful
him.
fashion sense.
That's right. But really looking forward. Jeff also previously wrote for orangeandbluepress.com over at that publication. And so looking forward to having him back, getting back on the website and writing, because he's pretty knowledgeable, not just about MLS, but the J League as well. I don't know if there's a bigger J League fan in Cincinnati than Jeff Tebbetts. So looking forward to having him involved in the show. As we begin to wind things down here on the show, let's talk about some more rumors, shall we? Speaking of Arsenal, Justin Hoyt, a former Arsenal player, Bradley, another Arsenal former striker, apparently rumored to be heading to Cincinnati. I don't buy this one.
Okay.
That's good audio.
Okay. Okay. All right. So we're talking about Lucas Podolski, correct?
Yep.
All right. So not only this is not a Spurs Arsenal thing. This came out amongst Build this past week, and it came with some solid sources, really, really solid sources, like people that we highly respect in the game. They're not typically wrong, and I'm not saying they're wrong here, but I do have a bit of an issue with the Lucas Podolski move. Lucas Podolski, two seasons ago when he was playing in Vissel Kobe, in Japan. Maybe that might have been an interest with an expansion franchise, but now 35, going to be turning 36, and FC Cincinnati's link to him, I don't see it. I don't see how it's a fit for the club with Jurgen Lacati up top. I don't see how it's a fit for the league. He's going to command DP salary, probably $1 million or more. He was $2 million in Turkey. This move was a bit of a disheartening move for me personally, because FC Cincinnati and Gerard Nijkamp and Jeff Birding, they've talked about how they're trying to turn over this roster and get building blocks and set up this club for future success. And then a guy like Lucas Podolski shows up, and I'm not sure if it's a real rumor or not. You know what? A lot of times with these guys over in Turkey and that, they want to come over to the States, and it's a lot of agent-driven moves. But all I can say is, this guy does not fit the mold of what FC Cincinnati needs. And if FC Cincinnati brings him over, I'm going to have real issues, because it is legitimately, at best, a 1-year move, maybe 1.5 if he comes over in the summer. And even that, he's going to be taking up spots that FC Cincinnati needs, those cornerstones that I was talking about earlier, rock on solid foundation, not on sand. We need guys that are going to contribute for years, that we can develop, that we can sell. We can develop and build and carry on this franchise, longer and longer and longer. If we were a team that was a piece away from winning an MLS Cup, I would understand a Lucas Podolski. But a team that, honestly, we're not suffering for season tickets. We don't need a quote-unquote name. Let's get guys that matter. Let's get the next his name escapes me. The DP in Columbus. Guys, help me out. Lucas Zelarayan. Let's get the next Zelarayan. Let's get those guys. We don't need to go to this old well, this seemed young well. We don't need, no offense, I love Harris Medina, and Harris Medina's done awesome. We don't need to keep going to that well.
Can I quote Michael Scott from The Office?
Yeah.
No.
Only if it's
Please,
good.
no.
God, no.
No. Honestly, if Gerard Nykamp signs Podolski, you will see another rant from Ken come out quickly, because it is a definite no. That is full stop no. I don't care what anybody else says. No, that's it.
Yeah, I think you're in agreement there, Mike.
Remember Gladiator, where the
Yeah.
Emperor does this? Well, I'm doing this.
For the audio podcast, he's giving you 2 thumbs down.
2 thumbs down.
2 thumbs dose.
Yeah, I'm not on board with this either. 35.
It's going to be 36 this summer.
Right. I don't know how. I mean, look, we need production at the striker position. I get that. I don't know. Man, I don't know.
Who's getting them the ball?
I do.
Mm.
This almost feels like a panic signing. Okay, like maybe this might appease the fans. That's why I was so pissed off about this move. Like, I don't think it was real, and like I said, I believe it was agent driven. But like, just the worst demons in me are like, oh, maybe this might be happening here, this is a move that would make me lose faith in the front office. Which I don't, like I said, I don't believe it's happening.
I don't either.
I'm just saying.
We did get this on the YouTube chat. Tell us how you really feel from Theodore Ott. Yeah, I mean, I mean, we're just being honest. We wouldn't have it any other way here at CC.
I want the Taylor Twellman. What are we doing? What are we doing?
We get that
Like,
on
what
a
are we
weekly
doing?
basis.
Come on.
Yeah.
Like, you know how you would like laughed after the Columbus Crew win a couple years ago in the Open Cup when we were in the USL team? Yeah, it's like the opposite of that is what Podolski made me feel.
Yeah. I did see some folks that were on board with it, but I don't know. I can't do it. The next one up, Lincoln, and we're not talking about the car. Looks like he's headed to Vissel Kobe. This was a move that we've talked about a couple times here on the show. It sounded like the club wanted to make the deal with FC Cincinnati. The player did not. Brad, where do we stand on Lincoln?
No, getting back to Vissel Kobe. Vissel Kobe, Podolski wasn't good enough for Vissel Kobe. So we won him. That's okay. I'm sorry.
Kobe beef.
Yes. Sorry.
Lincoln.
It's not happening. It's not happening. You know what? We were talking to a bunch of guys down from Brazil, and I think we might have dodged a bullet here. You know, Vissel Kobe is going to win out in this one. He didn't want to come to FC Cincinnati, or we weren't his favorite. Excuse me. That's that. I've been told that we weren't. He didn't want to come here is a lie. I've been told that, but he just Vissel Kobe was going to pay more. I think this was more of a salary cap thing. Also, I still don't understand the move. Like, what if he comes in? What's going to happen with Jurgen Locadia? I know we there was some history there, that some potential a couple of years ago. Honestly, I think that after the research was done, FC Cincinnati kind of went, but you know, he's going to Japan. He's not coming to Major League Soccer. Honestly, I just didn't see how the move fit with the salary cap. Was he going to be a young DP? Was he going to be a U22? I don't know, but long story short, he's going to the J League.
So that's kind of the latest, right? Surrounding the rumors. Of course, if anything does happen, we will have more about it over on the website. Jim has a question from YouTube. This is for our own Michael Lahoud. He asks, can you ask Michael from a player perspective what it's like for a player leading up to the SuperDraft? Is it nerve-wracking, exciting, stressful? Would love his perspective. Also, would you consider including the number 2 pick in a package deal to get Parker here? Ooh, I don't know if I go that far. Go ahead, Mike.
That's a great question, Jim. It was such a surreal experience. I remember, it's very different from how it is now. I remember having the combine. So we played in the Final Four, and then I ended up getting an envelope in my house that said, you've been invited to the MLS combine in Fort Lauderdale. So 2 weeks later, I'm on a plane heading down to Florida. Never been to Fort Lauderdale in my life. And you're there for a week trying to impress all these professional coaches from NASL to different levels. Foreign coaches are there and MLS coaches, obviously. And so from there, your draft stock can go up or down. And I remember that year, Steve Zakuani ended up being the number 1 draft pick. But my college roommate, Marcus Tracy, who ended up foregoing the MLS draft to play for Aalborg in Denmark, was supposed to be part of everything. And the Omar Gonzalez's, Graham Susie's, I mean, we had a high profile draft class.
Wow.
Yeah. My draft class was stacked. Chris Pontius, AJ De La Garza, Matt Beasler, Rodney Wallace, Kevin Alston. I mean, they're just in those names. They're guys that ended up playing for the national team, played in World Cups, played in UEFA or Europa League. Now, just so much depth and just impact players. I'm curious to see how many players from that draft were impact players versus other drafts. And so you do the combine, and then from there, they tell you, hey, you're going to get invited. Enough coaches have seen you where you're going to get invited now to the MLS SuperDraft. And that year was in St. Louis. So I was so green. I had no clue what was going on. I just kept getting envelopes. It's almost like the mob shows up and says, here's an envelope, show up at this place. So I'm pretty easygoing dude. So I'm like, whatever. I'll just get on a plane and go to St. Louis. Never been there. Actually, had been there for the College Cup. And so go to St. Louis, and it was at the convention center. And then you're waiting. You don't know where you're going to go. There's prospects about, could you go second like Calvin Harris, which we better get him. Or you could end up being in the second round. And so you're sitting there and you're waiting for your name to be called. And it's nerve-wracking when the first team that's supposed to call your name calls someone else's name. And so for me, the LA Galaxy was who I was supposed to get drafted by, the 3rd overall pick. Well, a guy named Omar Gonzalez went to them, and it ended up being a really good investment. A couple MLS Cups, an MLS Cup MVP later, and World Cup. And so now I'm crapping my pants thinking, oh no, am I going to be the next Brady Quinn? You don't want to be the next Brady Quinn.
Man, you had to throw some Notre Dame shade right there. Come on.
Yeah, dude.
Was it Notre Dame shade or brown shade?
It's I think brown shade. And so finally your name gets called, and it is the biggest relief in the world. And you get up there on stage and you have to give a speech. So the commissioner hands you your scarf, and he says your name, and they go through your highlight reel. And I feel like a scene. I felt like it was like a scene from Old School where Will Ferrell drinks the water and blacks out, doesn't even know what he's saying. That was me. I do remember thanking my family and just thanking Wake Forest University and thanking the people that got me there. But anything else that came out of my mouth, I like blacked out on it, because you don't realize your life will never be the same. Like, you've achieved everything that you set out to by becoming a professional soccer player. And yet this is only the beginning. And so it was such a special moment. And it's a bummer that these kids in this draft class, they won't get that in-person experience, but it still means a lot, and it's life-changing to get your name called and to be selected in the draft. So
you were expected to go to the Galaxy. Mm-hmm. It didn't end up working out, but you stayed in LA and played in the same stadium. Yeah, I knew I was going somewhere out west. That was the big thing. A lot of the Western Conference teams had spoken to me and expressed a lot of interest. Salt Lake was one of them. Colorado, the two LA teams. Yeah, Salt Lake. That was, so we're talking 8 or 9 years ago, right? Yeah, 2009. I could have been MLS Cup champion. Yeah, yeah. I could have been MLS Cup champion my rookie year. Yeah. And so, Chivas, the team that was so great, they had to let go from the league. But I remember Chivas was kind of under the radar. And when you're sitting there at the draft in the stands or in the seats, and you're looking at all these coaches, and when the team comes up, they're inspecting you like
like your meat. You just expect, like, is he the kid that we actually saw in the videos? He looks a little shorter, or his hair is a little different, or whatever they're thinking. And when the pick came to Chivas, I just knew. It was just this intuitive thing. They looked me up and down. They kind of put their heads in, and they were kind of looking over. I was there with my dad, and finally the commissioner said my name, and it's just you're thinking, whatever you do, don't fall down the stairs, don't trip. Whatever you do, this is on national TV. And then after the draft, you go to your hotel room. They put you up in like an amazing suite, which was awesome. I remember I had the Nokia, the old brick, the original Nokia. And I didn't have many minutes or texts, but I just remember coming back to my room. My phone is in my room, and just my phone blew up. And I ended up going on instant messenger at the time and just message everyone, stop texting me. I'm on minutes. Don't ruin my minutes.
So ladies and gentlemen, this is what CST After Dark is. After we end the show, we ask Michael, like, what was Alan Koch like? What?
So was this just after Preki, or was that the last year of Preki?
That was the last year of Preki. So Preki was the one who drafted me. I got a solid dose of Preki. And I'm grateful that he drafted me. He taught me a lot. Playing for Preki, if you survive preseason, you'll have a long career. He is tough. Eastern European, Molotov cocktail tough. And I mean, he toughened me up, and I thought I was resilient. And I mean, just mentally just made me tough and resilient, and I had to be patient. And whenever I got comfortable, he would just bring a new challenge in. And so we had a really good team my rookie year, and we were up for Supporter Shield. And I'm grateful that for all the experiences I had in the game, and I wouldn't change it for the world. So
do you remember your AIM screen name?
Oh man, I can't give that out. It was a little inside joke. That's the after dark.
I tried, Jim. I'm sorry. I tried. I remember mine. I still use it actually as my Xbox gamer tag.
I wasn't old enough and never allowed.
Yeah. Those were the days.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ken's like, what's AIM?
AOL Instant Messenger?
It's Ken.
I knew what it was. I was married at the time and didn't need a AIM messenger. I had 2 kids. I was running kids around on playing soccer and stuff.
He was trying to get them to not get on AIM.
Yeah.
He's playing defense.
Good stuff. Jim, appreciate the question. And Michael, thank you for your insight as always. Again, this is a big reason why not just yourself, but we're bringing on guys like Justin as well. And hopefully maybe down the road, some more previous players for FC Cincinnati. We shall see. But again, really appreciate your insight as always. Don't forget, follow us on Twitter at Cincy Soccer Talk. You can also email us feedback at CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. Brad, why don't you start to wrap things up here? Appreciate you being on the show as always. Thank you for getting us in touch with Travis. You got any final thoughts as we head out?
I'm just thankful that's my my theme for 2021 is thankfulness and gratefulness. I'm just glad to be here, glad to be on season 6 of CST. You got to talk with my buddy Yosef yesterday. That was a highlight of my week. I'm glad to speak with Michael Lahoud and other awesome guys like Justin Hoyt. I think if I can be grateful one thing, it's like the quality of individual that FC Cincinnati has brought in over the last 6 years. Seriously, I do mean that. And how they all have, they've all been given a part of Cincinnati when they've come here and they've left. Like it's stuck with them. And so I appreciate Michael. I appreciate Justin. I appreciate you, Subs. I know you're up in Toledo, Perrysburg, but I'm looking forward to this year. I think this year is going to be different. I really do. between guys being here for longer and coaches and GMs getting settled. I think it's going to be something to remember.
I appreciate you, Bradley, all that you do for us. As always, appreciate you, buddy.
Hey man, if I could grow up, I would be like you.
All right. I'm not that much older than you, dang it. The gray hairs give it away for sure. But as always,
see, you got the gray hair, but I'm receding, dude.
Yeah.
Like my barber even mentioned it last week. It was BS. He's like, "Oh, you're getting deep there." And I was like, "I was supposed to pay you to make you look good, man."
Right. I'm getting to the point now at the barber where she asks me if I want to have my eyebrows done. And I'm like, "What? Nobody's ever asked me that. And I've been getting my hair cut for almost 40 years now. I've
You're
never
still
been asked
thick
that.
up there, man. You're still thick.
Yeah,
I'm jealous.
I'm sorry, buddy.
Mm.
All right. Well, let's get out of here. Ken, you got any final thoughts, buddy?
I'm sort of along with Brad. Just thankful for everybody, but I did want to do one quick shout out to Matt, one of our loyal followers, Matt Adamczyk. He created a
Show it. Do you have it?
I don't have it yet. He created a CST flag for me that says "Demand Better" on it.
Hell
And
yeah.
I just want to say thank you, Matt. Thank you to our followers. Appreciate it. Seriously, you guys see the real me. I blew up, and it meant things to people. So it felt good to actually see somebody send me that and send a picture and say, "Hey, I got this for you. I'm going to send it to you." Matt, thanks again. Can't wait to get back into the stadium to see you waving your big flags and stand next to everybody. That'll be the best gift that this fan group can get, is actually being in the stadium, because I think we all need each other, honestly, to celebrate this team and the city.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought him up. Look, there are a lot of great fans of not just FC Cincinnati, but CST. But Matt, I go back to year one with us, and
Here's
I guess it was year two when he approached me to sign his FC Cincinnati, the Rise Together book. He asked me for the autograph. He wanted me to autograph the page where we are mentioned in the book. I'm like, what? And Mike's used to being asked for autographs. I'm not, So I will never forget that day. The fact that we were in Pittsburgh with a group of FC Cincinnati fans.
Was it the bus trip?
It was the bus trip. And that was a fun day. That was a really fun day. And FC Cincinnati won that day, even better. So, Ken, as always, buddy, I know you do a lot of fantastic work with the roster, you and Brad both. I appreciate all that you do, brother.
Thanks, man. Everything you do, too.
Oh, thank you, Ken. And last but certainly not least, the professional, Mike LaHood. You got any final thoughts as we get out of here?
Yes, I want to wish everyone a happy MLK Day. I don't want that to be lost on any of our listeners. I think now more than ever, because of the year that's been, we see the impact of sports. We see the impact of how the beautiful game can be used to share a message of equality and hope. And I just feel very honored to be able to use my voice for good, and how we use our voices for FC Cincinnati, and also to stand up for what is right and for what is good. So happy MLK Day, everybody, and really looking forward to this year for FC Cincinnati. I agree that I think this will be the change of fortunes for the club and for us as fans. So, looking forward to being on next week and in the future.
We didn't mention it, but Iko Para came to Minnesota year 3. Tom Parker could be that.
All right, so I'm going to put you on the spot, gents. One word. Who does FC Cincinnati draft on Thursday? Brad.
You're supposed to give me last, Hoops. You don't know this one.
One word.
Gam.
Ken.
He stole mine.
Actually, they're gonna draft a bunch because it's all on Thursday.
Right.
But the first one
round
is going to be Gam plus selection.
Okay. Kenneth?
I'll say Harris. I mean,
One
it's
word.
either that or Harris.
All right. Mike?
One word. It better bleeping be Harris.
Hashtag legend.
Oh man. All
Yeah,
right. Brandon.
honestly, if everything was equal, Calvin Harris is the best
Yeah.
player in this draft.
Mm.
He's gonna have the most impact. He's just not a central necessarily player.
Yeah.
Okay. So if it was me, draft Calvin Harris and deal with it later. You know, when you worry about stuff, it manifests like right here. You like the breathing. It's like, he's a guy who would just do it and it'll take care of itself.
I like it. I like it. My thanks to everybody who's on the panel tonight. Also, my thanks to Travis Clark from TopDrawerSoccer.com for joining us to preview the draft. And last but certainly not least, my thanks to all of you for listening and for downloading Cincinnati Soccer Talk. So for Brad Weigel, Ken Hetker, and Michael Hood, I'm Subes reminding you to watch your tackles, and we'll see you all next week.